Stories 1. It was around 4 in the morning on a Saturday as I drove to work down the interstate. I was in the middle lane, moving swiftly as I was running a bit late. Suddenly, a car in my left mirror caught up to me. I was going about 75 to 80, but this car was speeding at 90 to 100. It was a gray Honda Accord coupe. I glanced into the car, curious about the driver. Despite the darkness, I could see him looking back at me as he passed. Then, I noticed a young woman in the back seat, banging on the window. Initially, I didn't understand. I assumed it was a girl messing with me or whatever. It's usually not a person's first instinct to assume something sinister is going on, but when I saw the driver apparently push her down under the window and the car swerve at the same time, then I knew something was wrong. That woman was trying to get someone's attention and call for help. I started to speed up a little bit and got behind them so I could keep up. I could see the driver continuously reach into the back of the car with a swinging motion. He looked to be hitting her. I could see her arms flailing in the back of the car. I was in complete shock. I was actually witnessing a kidnapping right in front of me. As I was behind them, matching their speed of about 95 miles per hour, I took out my phone and called 911. As I was on the phone, the car in front of me brake lights lit up, and he started to slow down to a gradual stop. He definitely noticed that I saw what was going on and thought that I was following him. As much as I wanted to save that woman's life, I didn't know if the driver was armed with a gun or not. So, I pulled around him and floored it. I wanted to keep behind them, though, so I pulled off the next exit but didn't go entirely up the exit ramp. I waited for the car to pass by down the highway, then I drove over the grass and back onto the highway and began to floor it to catch up to the car, all while still talking to 911. Telling them where we were, what kind of car they were in, and how fast we were going. I was easily going 90 again to catch up to them. As I caught up to the car again going at an insane speed, he noticed me again even before I got too close. He started to brake in front of me again. I tried to go around him, but he cut me off. I had to stop. He got out of his car and started running towards my car with something in his hand. In a panic, I threw the car in reverse until he stopped chasing me. Then I put it back in drive before he could get back in his car, and I drove quickly past him. The 911 operator told me there was a state trooper not far ahead from our location and to just keep driving until I passed him. The man in the car behind me continued to follow me, both of us still going at an insane 90 miles per hour. I felt the weight of 1,000,000 pounds released off my shoulders when the flashing blue and red lights appeared in my rearview mirror behind the car chasing me. With me in front of him and the cop behind him, he didn't have much maneuverability. He quickly pulled over onto the grass. I pulled over in front of him, but with at least 2 cars worth of space between us because I still didn't know how this was about to go down. Luckily, the cop, with his gun drawn, got the guy out of the car with his hands up. By then, I got out and watched the whole thing. He was on the ground in cuffs, now laying on his stomach. Another police car showed up and another cop entered the scene. The woman in the back of the car was let out. She was badly beaten, in tears, and extremely ecstatic to be saved, as she kept praising me for saving her life. The driver of the car was her ex-boyfriend who had come to her house. When she refused to talk to him, he attacked her, grabbed her, and threw her in the back of his car, which had the child locks on. It's scary to think where he might have been taking her, or what he was planning to do to her if I or anybody else didn't witness her screaming for help in the back of the car. Stories 2. I made a trip to visit Boston to support a family member participating in the Boston Marathon. I drove from Chicago to Massachusetts, taking Route 20, which is possibly the longest highway in the United States. I'm not a fan of flying, so I opted to start driving around 3 p.m. after work. My GPS indicated a 15-hour drive, but given my driving habits, I estimated it would likely take 14 hours. The estimated time of arrival, ETA, was 6 a.m., but I anticipated reaching by 5 a.m. if I didn't make any stops. I prefer minimizing stops during long car journeys and aim to complete the entire trip in one go. Most of Route 20 passes through open land with relatively light traffic for the majority of the journey. Around 1 a.m., after about 10 hours of driving, I found myself nearly alone on the highway. Despite feeling somewhat fatigued, I kept myself alert with loud music. Although not quite finished, I remained optimistic about my progress. Despite having consumed 2 cups of coffee, I began to feel a creeping sense of tiredness. I resisted the urge to stop for more coffee and pushed through, knowing that the eventual rest in a bed would be all the more satisfying. At one point, I noticed I was the sole car on the road, but soon headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. The vehicle behind me was tailgating, prompting me to switch lanes. After overtaking me, the driver matched my speed, aligning our bumpers. This unsettling situation persisted as he continued to tailgate me closely, almost as if he intended to collide with my car. Feeling uneasy and not wanting to be involved in a potential road rage incident, especially at such a late hour, I accelerated to create distance between us. However, he mirrored my acceleration, maintaining a dangerously close proximity. In an attempt to shake him off, I changed lanes, only to find him doing the same, shadowing my movements closely. Now I knew something was wrong. It couldn't be an unmarked cop. It was some old ratty pickup truck. The truck started to flash its lights behind me. I didn't slow down. I was honestly afraid because I had never experienced anything on the road like this. I kept driving, stepping on the gas just a bit to increase my speed 5 to 10 miles per hour, hoping to pass a cop or any other cars for that matter. But I couldn't see another set of tail lights as far as the eye could see, just the very seldom car zooming past on the other side of the highway. The pickup truck behind me then switched lanes and floored it. I heard the aggressive roar of his truck's engine passing me. He cut in front of me, then he started to brake. I tried to swerve around him, but he kept blocking me. I was forced to stomp on the brakes too. I started to honk because it's all I could do. As we slowed, the man in front of me put on his hazards and started waving his arm out the window, signaling for me to pull to the side of the road. I obviously didn't listen. I took the chance to quickly pull around him as he started pulling onto the grass, and then I floored it. My sedan could easily escape his pickup truck, but I hit 100 and he was still not far behind me. I got off the highway at the first exit. I stopped at the red light at the end of the exit ramp, not expecting him to still be behind me. But there were the pickup truck's headlights pulled up behind me. Then the truck pulled up to the red light next to me. I looked to my left at the truck, and the window rolled down. Inside were 3 people, I'd assume men, wearing vendetta masks. They all looked at me, trying to scare me, I'm sure. But it worked. I ran the red light onto the main road and finally saw other cars around. The pickup truck following me eventually stopped. At one point, I feared for my life. It was more than road rage. I didn't catch the plate number. In fact, I don't recall seeing a plate on that 90s black pickup truck. Afterward, I parked in a Walmart lot, fell asleep, and woke up around 8 to complete the drive. I shared the incident with my family and cautioned everyone to be cautious when driving late at night. Stories 3. It was a Tuesday night in March. I was driving back from a friend's house in the city, a journey that usually took about an hour in decent weather. However, a deep fog had settled in on the long, lonely highway. Past midnight, this particular stretch of road was often deserted, save for the occasional passing semi with plates displaying unfamiliar lettering and colors from places I had never visited. The clock showed 1 a.m. It had been a long day spent wandering around with my friends, shopping, and exploring new cafes. Exhaustion weighed on me. My eyelids drooped heavily, and the impenetrable fog turned the highway into a never-ending, swirling mass of hypnotic gray. Driving cautiously, I occasionally slowed to a crawl, flashing my hazard lights to alert anyone behind me of my presence. Suddenly, a vehicle materialized, straddling the highway and the shoulder. I reacted swiftly, slamming on my brakes and pulling over behind it, narrowly avoiding a collision with the bumper. My heart raced from the close call, prompting me to shift my car into park to steady my nerves. As I observed the black sedan, it slowly inched forward off the road, coming to a complete stop on the shoulder. After a brief pause, the driver's side window rolled down, revealing an arm gesturing for me to pull over. At that moment, the rush of adrenaline from the abrupt halt still coursed through my veins, prompting me to veer further away from the main road. Following the line of cars, one of them veered onto a side road and halted. The driver's door swung open, revealing a tall, slender man in a black winter jacket and jeans, exuding a youthful aura of around 30 years. With a smile, he advanced towards my vehicle, emerging from the mist under the glow of my headlights. Tentatively, I cracked open my window, half expecting an apology for the reckless parking. As he neared, gesturing for me to roll it down further, a sense of unease crept over me. Politely declining, I indicated that I could hear him just fine. Inquiring about my destination, I mentioned heading home. He cautioned against driving in the persistent fog, emphasizing its unsafe nature. Despite his concern, I reassured him of my readiness to proceed. Puzzled, he probed why I had pulled over in the first place. Not wishing to escalate the situation, I fabricated receiving an urgent phone call that necessitated the stop. His knowing smirk hinted at his skepticism. Mentioning his nearby residence with his family, he proposed waiting out the fog at his place just a few minutes away. Politely declining once more, his insistence grew, resorting to scare tactics about the dangers of foggy conditions, my apparent fatigue, and the importance of considering my loved ones. Unmoved, I stood my ground, prompting his frustration. Glancing back at his car, I noticed movement in the passenger seat, revealing another individual. Abruptly, he lunged for my door handle, met by its locked state. Simultaneously, the passenger side of his vehicle swung open, unleashing a second man charging towards me brandishing a baseball bat. Swiftly shifting into reverse, I heard the driver shouting something at his companion. As I accelerated, he swung at my car but missed. Fortunately, I hadn't veered too far off the highway. It was difficult to distinguish where this road ended and the highway began. Reversing in the dense fog, I turned my wheels and shifted into drive, praying no traffic was approaching from behind. I pressed the gas pedal as I merged onto the highway haphazardly, without looking back. While driving that stretch of road, I often wonder if they attempted to stop anyone else that night and what could have befallen me if I had lowered my window further. Stories 4. Scary incidents can occur while driving at night. Nighttime is when the strange and suspicious individuals tend to emerge, so one must exercise extra caution. This took place in 2020, around the time when the pandemic began. I used to frequently work night shifts at a hospital, resulting in erratic hours. My journey home would always follow the same path, a parkway that leads 10 miles north to my town. Even during the day, this parkway is seldom busy, so at night, I am often entirely alone on the road, and with COVID, it felt even more deserted. I rarely encounter any state police during these late hours, which typically suits me well. As I arrived home quickly without any slow drivers around me, one night I was driving home in the middle of the night, or rather early hours of the morning. I saw a red flashing SOS light perched up on the side of the road, illuminating the taillights of a parked car. Clearly, someone needed assistance. Feeling generous that night, I pulled over in front of the car. As I passed by, I noticed a man waving his arms in the air. I activated my hazard lights and stepped out of my car to approach him. Judging by his skin tone and slight accent, he appeared to be a Hispanic man. He was wearing a face mask, making it difficult to estimate his age, but I would guess he was in his late 20s or early 30s. I asked him what the problem was. He said his battery died after staying pulled over for too long. I asked if he had jumper cables, but he said no. Unsure how else to help, I offered him a ride. However, he then asked to borrow my cell phone as his had also died. I wasn't eager to hand this stranger on the side of the road my phone, but I unlocked it for him and opened the phone app. He proceeded to call someone, then slowly walked away as he started to talk into the phone. His car door was open though, so I kind of decided to just take it upon myself to sit in the front seat and try turning the car on myself, and sure enough the keys were in the ignition still. I turned the key one click to the right, and to my surprise the battery turned on. I tried turning the hazards on, they worked. I switched on the radio, then turned the key to start the car. It started immediately. I didn't have time to ponder if I had walked into a trap. As the car started, I felt arms wrap around my throat, attempting to choke me. A voice outside kept yelling, "Hey, hey," repeatedly. It was the guy with my phone. I managed to break free from the person in the back seat quite effortlessly. I saw a young teenager in the back seat as the man with my phone ran back to his car screaming at me. I chose to flee rather than fight, and as soon as my car was on, I heard a loud pop that I later realized was a gunshot. My rear windshield had a hole in it with multiple cracks around it. I couldn't call the police until I got home because the guy still had my phone. I arrived home and informed my parents, then proceeded to dial 911 using the landline phone. I detailed to the authorities that I had fallen into a trap with someone hiding in the back seat, and that the individual who shot at my car still possessed my unlocked phone containing all my personal information. The police suggested contacting AT&T immediately and requested them to trace the most recent call made within the hour. However, AT&T's customer service didn't open until 7 a.m., so I had to wait while the police were still present. In the meantime, I utilized the Find My iPhone feature on my dad's phone to secure my device. I hoped they had not found our home address before 7 a.m. I called AT&T to inquire about tracking the last call, but no calls were logged since my conversation with my mom at work the previous day. This meant the man never made a phone call. I discovered more bad news. All the Bitcoin in my Coinbase account was gone, worth thousands of dollars, sent to an untrackable Bitcoin wallet address. The phone's location stopped updating once the thief disposed of or turned off the phone. A week after the incident, I woke up to my mom's concerned voice. My dad asked me to come downstairs and outside because they heard someone in our backyard. We checked but found no one there. My mom wanted to call the cops, but my dad suggested waiting until we heard another noise, which never happened. I don't know if it was a person they heard, but if it was, I hope it wasn't the man who took my phone. My address was saved on that phone. It's been 2 years now, so it's all in the past. Still, I will never stop to help someone on a highway at night ever again.